Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's the author of the book Our Lady of the Overlook, no other than Mr. Rodney Carpentier III.
Good evening.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Rodney, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure, Daniel. So I am an 18-year law enforcement veteran, and I am looking to transition myself into a independent self-published author. And my debut novel came out in October of last year. You mentioned Our Lady of the Overlook, and that is the first of a trilogy. The second book will be out this fall. I haven't announced the date yet, but it'll be out this fall. It's currently with the editor, and I'm looking to get the third book out by next year.
Mr. Randy Carpenter III, thank you so much for sharing your book to the world. So, tell us what is the premise of Our Lady of the Overlook?
So the premise of Our Lady of the Overlook follows a rookie police officer named Mike, and he is working in the town of Hunter, a small town in the Catskill Mountains of New York. And he's working in the shadow of his deceased father, who was the police chief before he passed away. And Mike is learning to become a rookie police officer when he's approached by a podcast host who specializes in true crime. And he finds out that his dad was actually involved in a cold case murder 40 years prior. And the podcast host is trying to get some more information. And Mike kind of starts looking into things when he encounters his own modern day murder. And now he has this pull of uh, learning how to become a police officer, dealing with his dad's past, and he starts to figure out that there may be some connections between the two cases, and it helps him to crack a big break in the cold case before he starts working on the new one.
So, Mr. Rodney, what does the protagonist, Mike Ellis, navigate his role as the rookie cop in the rural Catskill mountain town?
Um, his role is he's really starting to learn the um, career. He's transitioning from a completely different life as a student, and he's trying to figure out what he wants to do with his life.
So, what ways does Mike's relationship with the deceased father to the former chief of police influence his actions and decisions?
So a lot of what he's trying to do is he's living in that shadow, and a lot of the people that he's working with, some of the older police officers, remember his dad and remember all the good things about him, whereas Mike kind of had a very standoffish relationship with his father. His father. Um, he was born when his father was already an older man and had basically lived his entire career. So Mike never knew him as a young person, only kind of knew him as an older person. And his father kind of kept him at arm's length. And before he passed away, Mike was actually away at boarding school and wasn't actually there when his dad died. So he has a lot of pent up aggression and confusion over what his relationship should be with his father.
How does the arrival of true crime podcaster catalyst the events in the story?
So the True Crime podcaster, his name is Tim Figueroa, and he has a show called Figure It Out with Figgy. And Tim's whole thing is that he he wants to try to find the true crime podcasts or the true crime um, stuff that is out of the ordinary or not what is covered by everyone else. He wants to kind of dig in and really get something unique. So when he uh, when he apparently discovers this case, his job is to try to get a reaction out of folks. And he has a very aggressive nature of going in and kind of pushing people to react. And he actually comes in and he ambushes Mike when he's with his friends, and he says, hey, you don't know me, but I want to talk to you about your father. And Mike, without him really knowing the level of the relationship, and it forces Mike to kind of have something else to investigate, something he didn't, something about his father that he didn't expect to exist.
So, what are the similarities between the cold case and the modern day murder that Mike investigates?
So the major thing that kind of connects them is they're both hooked to the Overlook, which is based on an actual place in the Catskills. The cold case was the body was discovered out on the Overlook, and it's a young woman, um, and she's been strangled. And Mike's father, who was a rookie police officer at the time, is the first law enforcement officer on the scene for that case. Then, if you fast forward the 40 years, when Mike is now a rookie police officer, he gets called to the same Overlook, only he's at the trailhead. He's kind of at the bottom of the mountain. And it's a young woman. She's been strangled. And there's another cop by the name of Ellis.
Is that a spoilers, Mr. Rodney?
No, that's not a spoiler. That's what happens in the first part, the first act of the novel. So that's not really a spoiler. What's the spoiler is how Mike is able to find some connections and make that breakthrough with the case.
So, how does the setting of the Catskill Mountains contribute to the novel's atmosphere and themes?
Well, it um, if you're not familiar with the Catskill Mountains, they are a very remote area of New York State. They're upstate and nowhere near the city. It's a lot slower. It's a lot more calm. The mountains kind of close you in because the only way to get from one side of the mountains is through these little passes. So once you're up there, you're kind of stuck on whatever side you're on. So there's a lot of room for secrets and a lot of room for mystery, and a lot of places that you can hide things like a body or some other nefarious stuff. So the time that we take place during Our Lady of the Overlook is actually going the from the summer and into the fall, and the fall is absolutely gorgeous up there with all the foliage and the colors and the people that go up to see all those things. And it's just a very magical place too, because you can get so lost in how beautiful it is, not to but also having these ideas of this mystery and these secrets that are hidden behind everything.
So, Mr. Rodney, in what ways does the novel explore the theme of reconciling with one's past?
So we start looking at, again, that relationship between Mike and his father, and really uncovering the secrets. um, you know Mike's father, his name is Charlie, has passed away, so he can't really make any amends with anybody. And as more and more secrets come out, and you find out, without spoiling too much, you find out that his father had more to do with the victim of the cold case than originally thought. Mike has to kind of reconcile the fact that maybe his father was more involved, which leads some of the other people to think that Mike was more involved in the death that he's investigating. So it kind of creates this this dichotomy where Mike unfortunately starts to feel probably the same way his father did, without really understanding how his father was dealing with that.
So, how did you build suspense and maintain tension throughout the novel?
One of the major things that I did was using um, so the way that the novel is structured is Mike is your main character, he's your protagonist. He's in every scene, but there's only one scene that is actually from his point of view, and that scene is the one where he discovers the body at the trailhead of the Overlook. Everything else is from outside of Mike, people looking at him. So you never really get into Mike's head to understand what he's thinking. You only have how other characters are interpreting him, which is also what Mike is doing with his dad. Everything's on the outside and nothing is really on the interior. So you don't get that feeling of really knowing what Mike is thinking and feeling. You're getting all this outside perspective. So you don't really know what's going on. Um, you're getting a lot of interpretation.
So, Mr. Rodney, what would be your advice for those people out there who want to write their own novel like you?
Have a really good idea and just work, work, work. It took me about 2.5 years to go from the inception of this idea to finishing the final product. I came up with the idea back in 2022. I was working at the time and working overnight. It was quiet. I was tired. I was losing it, and this idea popped in my head, and I decided to kind of run with it. And it took a long time, and it took a lot of dedication to wanting to get it done, and also a lot of research into the craft aspects of things and how to structure that story. Because I, in another life, I was a literature major in college, so I had this idea, and I'm like, oh, I can write a book. It's no big deal. I've studied all these things, and I'll be the next Ernest Hemingway or William Faulkner. And when you sit down to actually kind of do those things, you realize that you're not that good of a writer. Those people are special. They're special talents. People who came before you. So you have to kind of find your own way. And I tried using all the craft books I had in college to, the hero's journey or um, all these different story structures, and nothing was working for me until I found the save the cat method, which is typically something used for films. But I listened to a number of podcasts concerning the save the cat method, and that really just opened up my brain, and it matched how I thought of things. So I was able to plan out the scenes a lot better and really kind of unfold that story. So having a good idea and having a plan are probably the two biggest things to from get you started.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Rodney. So, what will be your short term and long term goals in writing?
So short term, I want to finish this trilogy so that I can not leave anybody hanging. I think that's an unfortunate thing. Sometimes you start out with a great idea, but it doesn't close very well. So I want to make sure that I do a good job of finishing this trilogy in a satisfying way. Long term, I want to turn this into a lucrative kind of entrepreneurial um, venture and be able to kind of live in my post law enforcement career as a writer. Uh, I don't really, I've been answering to other people and going to work, um, having to be somewhere at a certain time for 30 35 years. So I'd really like to kind of wake up in the morning, be my own boss, and say, hey, today we're going to work on this, tomorrow we're going to work on that. And I couldn't think of a better thing to do than to continue writing.
Mr. Rodney, good luck to your goals in life
Thank
as
you.
well in your writing. So, what ethical dilemmas does Mike encounter during his pursuit of justice?
So Mike is he finds himself kind of caught between two different people. when he's assigned to investigate the murder at the coming out of coming out of act one of the story, he also so he gets partnered with a New York State police investigator, who's got has a lot of time on, has a ton of experience, and is not happy to be partnered with somebody with, zero experience. A, not even like someone who's inexperienced. He has no experience. So he has that, and then on the other side, he has the the family of the murdered girl, um, are looking for him to kind of be an advocate on their side. So those two things come into conflict because they're trying to keep some of the family out of the investigation, whereas the state police investigator wants to start bringing these people in because he thinks that they may be suspicious. So Mike kind of gets stuck between those two things, which leads him to not having trust on either side of those relationships. Eventually the state police investigator, Felix, has to um, has to kind of bring the family members in on his own. And when he does that, it makes it seem that Mike was not trustful to the family, and so now he's out on both sides, which causes him a lot of consternation, and kind of actually leads him towards his eventual breakthrough with the cold case.
Interesting indeed, Mr. Ronnie. Hoping for the second book to come. And what literary devices that you employ to enhance the storytelling?
Um, I use there are a lot of metaphors in there. I use a lot of, again, the point of view. I think is pretty important. The story is actually told through the lens of the podcaster, Tim Figueroa. He is the first person narrator at times, but because he's kind of creating this book in the aftermath of everything that happened, he's also diving into these individual characters who are again making their interpretations of Mike. So there's a lot of playing with point of view that kind of work against the reader as you try to learn who you can trust as a narrator, and when you understand how framed it is in the aspects of the story, and you really start to wonder what people's motivations are going forward.
So, Mr. Rodney, how does the novel balance elements of mystery, crime, and personal drama?
So the mystery, is pretty plain. You want to know who killed the modern day murder. You want to know who did that crime, and then you have this cold case, which has um, been cold for 40 years. You don't know the name of the victim. We don't know who she is. We don't know who killed her, and we don't know how Mike's dad is involved. So you have all those mystery elements going in there. Meanwhile, when it comes to crime, you're obviously investigating the murders, but in the terms of crime procedural, because I have the direct experience in law enforcement, I use a lot of as many real world aspects as possible. When it comes to, there's a scene in the very beginning of the book that is a just a vehicle stop, and just to kind of illustrate how new and how green Mike is with the profession, and how he's not able to really communicate and get the information from people. Um, and then uh, what was the third part of the question? Mystery, crime,
Mystery, crime, and personal drama.
personal drama. Mike is Mike is dealing with so many new things in his life at this time. There's just a ton of change, and he's got all these different all these different perspectives coming in. He has his mentor is his partner Hugh, who is not really, who is trying to kind of push him to cooperate and build his career and kind of have a life where and then the current police chief was his father's rival. So while he's giving him opportunities, he's also kind of holding him back. Um, then you have the dealing with the family who's lost their loved one in the modern day, and really getting Mike really feeling his obligation and his dedication towards them also.
So, Mr. Rodney, before we wrap up our discussion, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Food 101, in its fifth season, people. Fifth season with Chef Alessandro, one of the specialty chef in one of the five-star hotel in downtown Toronto. Please do listen to our latest episode. We are reading our letter senders all over the world. So, Mr. Rodney, how does Our Lady of the Overlook compare to other contemporary crime procedurals in terms of themes and character development?
So I think we're right up there with the current trends and looking at true crime and looking at historical cases in a new light and finding those secrets that weren't necessarily there. And then as for things with structure, I talked a lot about the point of view. I've noticed a lot of the more modern novels use this back and forth of different perspectives, and having chapters pretty much just named after the character that's narrating or whoever's point of view it is. So the kind of the changing of the point of views is a device, and I think a theme that you're using to just kind of show how different perspectives can look on the same situation, and how one person's perspective can kind of complete another person's perspective in there. And I think you're that one of the other major themes is kind of this idea that not only are there secrets in the past, but there are different forms of justice and different forms uh, of kind of reaching out and making a person whole. That the pursuit of justice doesn't always end with somebody being in handcuffs or somebody being convicted of something.
Mr. Rodney Carpentier III, thank you so much for sharing your book to the world, and looking forward for more books like this. So can you please invite our listeners to support your book?
Absolutely. I am available on Amazon, but also you can go directly to my website, rlcarpentierwriter.com. You can go there and you can purchase a print copy that I sign and personalize and send right to you. I'm on social media. I'm on Patreon, where I'm currently releasing a serial. And that is about it right now.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Rodney Carpentier III, because if you support him, more novels to come. We're looking forward for the second and third book, Mr. Rodney.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.